Hey, we are live. Let me know if you can hear me, see me, all the things. I love doing these lives. And now that I fixed the camera from last week, it's not so big. If you were here last week, you know what I'm talking about. But today, I'm one here to answer questions, but also some questions have come in via email. People who can't attend live but wanted me to answer some of their questions, which I super appreciate. So if you're in the same boat and you're watching this replay, feel free to send me any questions that you want me to answer. I love answering questions. It's kind of my jam. So if you're here live, let me know. Otherwise, I am just going to dive straight into the questions that I received. And then if you're here live or you show up at a different time, then I can go ahead and answer those. So, a question I received was just kind of around someone who's trying to figure out what they're working on. They keep bouncing around doing a part of one thing and then they decide another thing is more important. So they work on that before another shiny object comes in, and then nothing gets done. So basically, multitasking at its worst, I guess, is the best way to describe that. So let's tackle this in a couple of different ways. So, two parts to that question were figuring out what to focus on and also how to stop yourself from jumping all around. Now I'm going to layer in some of the human design component here because it does depend, and if you're on that human design wagon like I am, then I want to give you kind of some points of reference for that. So generally, when we are struggling what to focus on, like what's important in our business, it's because we're not clear on what our goals are for the next 30, 60, 90 days. I'm a huge fan of only ever really focusing on the next 90 days because personally for me, I like a lot of flexibility and I need a lot of flexibility. And I can't know what 6 months is going to look like from now. You can absolutely plan for that far out in advance as long as you are able to kind of respond to what is happening in your audience, all of those things. And so that's essentially why I personally prefer to only ever plan kind of 90 days out. So that's kind of one layer. So yeah, if you are struggling to determine what to focus on, like what's most important, it really does depend on the business phase that you're in. So here are some different scenarios. So let's say you're in the startup Sally phase, and I classify someone being in the startup Sally phase if they are making less than $1,000 per month, or they really are in the startup, right? They don't have any offers created. They don't really have an audience. Maybe you've started posting on social media, but you're not really intentionally presenting anything, and you haven't started growing your email list, right? Like that's a startup Sally, really in that boat, in that startup phase. So if you are there, then your number one goal is to determine who your ideal audience is and sell them an offer, right? Like literally, that's what it is. So that means that you're probably going to need to build an audience. So whether that is on social media or on email, although secret squirrel, you probably want to do both, or go all in on email, which is the decision that I made about 3, 4 years ago, to just go in on all in on email and not necessarily worry too much about social media. But you've got to build that audience. And typically, if you're doing that, you're going to have some type of free thing to bring them in. But if you do want to launch an offer, right, if you do want to present an offer to those people, then you can kind of kill two birds with one stone by creating some type of free event. And this is where you'll see things like 3-day challenges coming up, or a free masterclass, or any type of scenario like that, or a Q&A, a live workshop, anything that has kind of like a live element. Not only can you get people to join your email list, right? They've got to sign up to access that. At the end of that, you can then turn around and launch something. And typically, if you're just in the startup phase, And again, it depends on the type of business that you're running. Now, I specifically have the most experience with coaches, course creators, nonfiction authors, um, digital products, anything that you're selling online is typically my zone of genius. So I've done all the different things. But typically, if you're just in that starting phase, then the easiest thing to kind of launch is a container where you don't have to create a whole bunch of stuff ahead of time. A container where you're literally creating it in response to whatever your audience is kind of asking for. So you do obviously need to have an idea of what you want to do, because how can you, one, create a challenge or a free experience if you don't know what that is? And so that's what I encourage you to do, is really focus in on that. And so basically that would be, okay, who is the audience that I want to work with? How do I want to help them? And what's a free thing that I can create to get people to join my audience that will help them solve and kind of in a smaller problem, and then I can present an offer after they go through that, right? So that's in its simplest form what I would recommend. Now, if you're a launching Lucy, then you're in a phase where you've already got probably a couple of offers created. You might have already launched them, or you're about to launch something. You're earning less than around 2K per month. Your email list is small, your audience is small. That's kind of what that looks like. So if you're in the launching Lucy phase, your number one goal is to grow your audience so that you're ready to launch your brand new thing, right? Put it out into their world. So you could kind of do the same thing as we just talked about for a startup, Sally, as in create something that was strategically bringing them into your offer. You will have probably already a good idea of what that might be. And so that would be what I recommend, is that you focus on building your audience with the strategic free thing that will then funnel people into your brand new offer. And maybe you might also consider creating a wait list for that offer so that you're only speaking to targeted people who want that offer. Now, if you're in the growing Gabby and money making Mary phase, then you're going to probably need to focus on a couple of different things based on your own data. And so that is going to largely depend on how are you growing your audience, how are you nurturing your audience, and how are you selling to your audience every single day? Like, what are those three buckets? What do they look like? And so for growing Gabby, you might be focused on creating more offers to plug in the gaps in your offer suite. You probably also want to automate your list building efforts. So those might be the things that you're focused on. Money making Mary, you have a full offer suite, you're making 5K plus or more per month. So you're probably looking at automating a lot of your systems. So automating your sales, which means having some offers that are more evergreen, automating list building, which you've probably already done, potentially looking at adding a recurring income stream. So that's kind of the spread and how you determine what you're focusing on. And then once you know what that looks like, then you can break it down into the weekly tasks. How am I going to achieve this? And then asking yourself the question, what's my immediate next step? And then what's after that? And then what's after that? And then what's after that? And that's kind of how you get to that point. So then the other part of that question, which was around, shiny object syndrome, being pulled into multiple things, that then largely comes down to you being consciously aware of what it is that you're doing. And if you are presented with a shiny object, like something catches your eye, you have a decision to make, right? You could literally go, okay, does this align with the thing that I'm actually trying to achieve? And if it does, then you can go down that rabbit hole. But if it doesn't, then you either go, okay, as a reward for completing whatever tasks that I want to complete, then I can go and check out this shiny object, right? So that's kind of how you balance it, but you have to be conscious, right? When I say conscious, like we're all consciously walking around, but making sure that when you are doing things that you're consciously doing them, that you're not being sucked into something, and you're the only one that knows what that looks like for you. So personally, I'm a huge fan of time blocking. So blocking chunks of time in my calendar with a very specific focus and then switching everything off. So turning notifications off. With my phone, I actually put it like face down so that I'm not tempted to look at notifications. But predominantly, most of my notifications are off on my phone, and I just have the banners, which means that it just shows the numbers on the apps, right? It'll show whether there's a new message or something like that. But the actual notifications on my lock screen, I don't have those on at all so that I'm not distracted, right? So I do all the things that I can to make sure that I'm not being distracted when I'm in that focused time block. So a focused time block for me is typically 90 minutes, and that will be one specific focus. So it could be that I'm writing a whole bunch of emails, it could be that I'm recording videos for my YouTube channel, it could be that I'm writing new content for a book, whatever it is, right? The focus is very clear. It's 90 minutes, and that's all I'm doing. No emails pop up, nothing, right? I've made it that that environment is that way. So that's a really great way to make sure that you don't go down that rabbit warren. And then at the end of that 90 minute block, I will reward myself with either going and reading a book that I'm excited about, or going checking my email and seeing if there is something that grabs my attention. But you have to be making those decisions. You have to consciously do that. You can't allow yourself to just go off on tangents, because you're the only person that makes those decisions. And I think it was an email a couple of days ago where I said, if you're not making the decision, like if you're not actively making the decision, through you not actively making a decision, you're making a decision, right? So not choosing to do something is a choice in and of itself. And it's the same with shiny object syndrome and being all over the place. You are unconsciously letting that happen. And it's a really easy switch to be able to just go through the exercise that I did at the beginning of this video, to be able to determine, okay, this is what I'm focusing on, and this is what it looks like for the next 90 days. And here's the time blocking that I've blocked off, and I've got focused time to work on those things. And then the time outside of that, you can do whatever you want, right? You can go down the shiny object syndrome stuff, but you can't use that as an excuse all the time, because you're the one that makes that choice, regardless of whether you've consciously made that choice or whether you've unconsciously made that choice. So hopefully that makes sense. So that was the first question. If you've got any questions, feel free to just drop them into the chat as well. I'm literally here to answer questions, but I'm just going through the ones that were sent in via email. So let me just scroll through and see if I can find the next one. But yeah, if you feel free, don't be shy to drop them into the chat here on YouTube, and I will happily answer them. Okay, so then I had another one around writing emails. Like struggling what to write in your emails, struggling to come up with ideas, all of that thing. And this is a common thing that I hear all the time. It's part of the reason why I created the Welcome Email Experience audio training, which you guys should have seen come out today. I'm going to talk more about it later on. Actually, if you are here live and you haven't grabbed that, you can go and check it out here. I'm just going to pop that in the chat, and then I'm also going to show it here. So yeah, if you haven't grabbed the Welcome Email Experience, there are a couple of bonuses in there that will actually help you with the writing email side of things. But whenever you're struggling to write emails, I think it's because you haven't decided on who your audience is and how you help them. Or maybe you have, but you're struggling to kind of create the content because you're not clear on what you're promoting. At the end of the day, emails are very similar to what you might share on social media, but it's just in a slightly different medium, right? Like that's it. So at the end of the day, it really just comes down to what is it that you offer, who's your audience, and then what type of emails do you want to be writing? I think that's a really core starting point. So whenever you're trying to come up with ideas for your emails, I always start with the my offer suite first, and then I just go and mine for all the problems that my audience has for each of those individual offers, and then I can create emails from that. But honestly, the daily story bank practice is my number one thing for writing emails. And the the high level version of that is basically having a story bank of your stories, as in, why did you start your business? How did you get started? What problems did you face? What's your island A problem and what's your island B solution? Just a whole bunch of stories based on you. And then the daily story bank practice is literally asking and answering this question: what happened today? And what I mean by that is, at the end of every single day, I have a prompt in my phone that just pops up and says, what happened today? And then I just open up my Otter app and I just literally go through my day. I just record it. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to use that. I'm just recording and capturing things. And then through the act of doing that, as I'm going through and recounting things, things will just kind of pop up and I'm like, oh, that would be a really good story to share with my audience. Now, I share stories to help you guys understand certain things, to hit home a point that I'm trying to make, because stories are what we remember. So if you're struggling to write emails, I would just literally start with that. And I capture stories everywhere. If I'm watching something on TV and a quote comes up, I will literally, if I can, if it's not live TV, I will pause and make a note of it. I'll write down the quote or whatever. I just shared about the book that I'm reading right now, and the book is so good that I'm highlighting so many passages in it, and I will use those as story prompts basically in my emails. So it really just comes down to what makes the most sense for you. Hey Shreddy, so you said you just finished the launch of your membership and you want to send out a survey to get feedback from your audience, but not sure what questions to ask to help me understand why they didn't join. Okay, first things first, how long was the launch of the membership? Can you share a little bit more about that? Um, how many days? How many emails? All of those things. I can't remember how long that was for. Did you do it over 5 days? Um, what was that like? But basically, if you're going to send an email to your audience, and if you do this, it should only be to the people who clicked and didn't buy. That would always be my recommendation. Okay, so you did 2 days pre-sale and then 5 days to your whole list. Okay, perfect. So number one, you're only going to send an email out to the people who clicked, because it doesn't matter about anyone who didn't click, right? Because the people who didn't click on your sales page weren't interested, and there's nothing you can do about that. The timing just wasn't right. And all of those things. So perfect. I love that you did this. So 1 email every day and 2 on the last day. Great. Okay, so based on I'm hoping that you were tracking email clicks. Then it just depends on the questions that you want answers to. But typically, I send 1 email that just has 1 question. What was the main reason that you didn't buy? And then I just have 4 options. Option 1, pricing, right? Pricing, either it was too expensive or I couldn't afford it, however you want to word that. Number 2 would be timing. Timing just wasn't right. That type of thing. Number 3, I encountered a tech snafu. Right, I always put that one in there, because anyone that comes back to me and chooses that option, then I will send them the link to buy, because they encountered a tech, and so for whatever reason they didn't reach out. That's totally fine. And then number 4, I can't remember what the other option is. Something like, so we talked about pricing, we talked about timing, we talked about a technology snafu. This isn't a priority for me right now, with is my 4th option. And I just create link tracking clicks, right? So for each option is it's hyperlinked, and if they whichever link they click, they are then tagged with that answer. So that's option one. Option two is literally to just send a quick survey, but that's all I ask, is what was the main reason that you didn't buy? Because the preface to that is, I noticed that you were interested in this because you clicked, right? That's the starting point. And obviously, it's totally fine if someone doesn't buy because you can't control that. But basically, what I say is to ensure that I'm meeting the needs of my audience and that I'm not missing something, um, in terms of sales page, all of that kind of stuff. I'd love it if you just took like literally a minute, and that's why I make it click triggers so it's all done in the email, so they don't have to go and fill out an actual survey. But it depends because I know Shreddy you're using high level, so it's all built in. So I don't know if you have that ability, but that's what I would do. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Um, but yeah, and just remember when something is brand new, if it's a new offer, we I'm not sure if you did because I know that you wanted to get this out there. I would typically do at least a 6-week nurture campaign leading up to something like this, right? Something that's brand new, your audience. Um, this is something new they haven't encountered. And, when I say nurture campaign, I really think, nurturing them around the type of content that would be inside the membership, all of those components. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Perfect. You're welcome. Um, but other than that, I think those were the two main questions that I received ahead of time. Um, And you said I did 4 weeks, but didn't have anyone purchase, so not sure if it was the messaging or sales page. So here, inside the I think it's inside Heartbeat, and I actually shared it in email. I want you to go through and analyze, right? So there is the promotion plan assessment. It's the same, to determine, right, to have a look at your analytics. The things that you want to be looking at is how many clicks did you actually get on the sales page to understand whether it's the sales page or messaging, right? Because that'll tell you. So if you had really good open rates on your emails and you had really good click rates on your emails, right? So if those are a tick, then there's nothing wrong with the emails. Then the next thing that we look at is the sales page. So how many people viewed the sales page would be the next question. And if you didn't have anyone buy, it doesn't necessarily mean that the sales page is the problem. It could be that pricing and timing are factors, right? Because that's the other component to this is that we cannot control how many people buy. And so there is a number factor into this as well. Normally, we need 100 people to see our sales page before I would even recommend that the sales page needs adjusting. So I think you need to go back and have a look at your analytics, but specifically I would be looking at the promotion plan assessment. And I shared that. I'm just going in to see if I've linked to that. Um, I shared in the make sales every day, Shreddy. So I would go and have a look at that. The promotion plan assessment, on how you go through and assess all of those things is in the Make Sales Everyday training. And let me grab the lesson that it was in. I'm pretty sure it was in workshop 3. Yeah, it is. So I'm just going to get you the direct link so you can access it from here. Um, So only you will be able to access it. If anyone is watching this replay, you won't be able to access it because it's only for members. But I would go through the promotion plan assessment first before you send out any email survey thing, because I think understanding those metrics will be really helpful. And yeah, and I definitely want you not to think that just because people didn't buy right now doesn't mean that they won't. I've had lots of conversations in the last couple of days around the fact that the election is imminent. And so there's also that layer. So I would be super interested if you wanted to, I would probably represent this as part of your Black Friday promotion to your audience, right? Like re-offer it again. You and the exact same promotion, right? Aside from the fact that you would probably do it for Black Friday. So you might choose to offer a slightly different bonus, but I would keep the price, the launch price the same. But I would try it at Black Friday because I do think the election component is a big factor right now. And I really feel like people aren't investing in anything new. They're investing in things that are a must. And so that's part of it for you too, Shreddy, is that potentially this is maybe not a massive priority for them right now until the election piece is done. So I know it's frustrating, but at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about that. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we can jump off this call. Um, But otherwise, it was so great to see you here. And for anyone watching the replay, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to send them ahead of time or show up for the next training call next week. Yes, I really think Black Friday would be a really good option for you too, Shreddy. Perfect. Okay, lovelies, have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll chat with you soon. Take care.